North Korea's latest missile launch has triggered more reaction, concern and condemnation around the world. The test shows Pyongyang has achieved a crucial milestone in its effort to develop its nuclear weapons capability. As viewers of Russia oversight reports, China and Russia have weighed in as the Trump administration examines its options against North Korea.
Tuesday in Moscow, Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping promised to strengthen their alliance against an increasingly defiant North Korea.
We have agreed to robustly promote our joint initiative to find a solution to the Korean issue based on the Russian step-by-step program and the Chinese ideas of concurrently freezing North Korea's nuclear activity, as well as the United States and South Korea's large joint military exercises.
North Korea claims its latest test was an ICBM. The missile fell in the Sea of Japan, and the true capabilities of the weapon remain unclear. The missile test, the 11th this year, has stoked fears the isolated nation may be closing in on a weapon capable of reaching the United States. Late Monday, President Donald Trump tweeted that North Korea has just launched another missile, asking, "Does this guy have anything better to do with his life?" referring to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. On Friday, speaking at the White House alongside South Korea's president, Trump declared the U.S. has run out of patience with North Korea.
The era of strategic patience with the North Korean regime has failed. Many years, and it's failed. And frankly, that patience is over.
The North Korea issue is likely to be front and center when Putin, Xi, and the other G20 leaders meet with the U.S. president in Hamburg, Germany later this week. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News, Washington.
Well, for more insight on the UN Security Council meeting on North Korea, let's go to the United Nations, where VOA UN correspondent Margaret Besheer is standing by. Hello, Margaret.
Hi, Vincent.
Now, we know of this Security Council meeting on North Korea requested by the U.S. Question is, what is likely to be done to North Korea that hasn't been done up to this point?
So don't expect anything today. There will be a meeting which the U.S., Japan, and South Korea requested, and it's sort of standard practice every time North Korea does one of these provocations. The council convenes, and we'll hear a lot of outrage from council members, condemnation. I've heard from diplomats that the United States has circulated a draft statement condemning the launch. We don't know yet if all 15 members will agree to it. We have to see where China is on it, so possibly we might have a statement today. So the next big question is, will there be more sanctions against North Korea? And that means getting China to come on board for that. And traditionally, China has been reluctant to pile on the sanctions on North Korea, but it has agreed to it several times in the past. So there are existing sanctions. The question is, will there be new sanctions? Will they tighten the existing ones? Last month, at the beginning of June, the Council did add 14 more individuals and 4 entities to an existing travel ban, asset freeze type of sanctions list. So will it be something like that, or will it go further? Will there be bans on petroleum products, for instance, from North Korea? Will there be a ban on North Korea exporting labor? You know, they have workers in other countries who send home money, which finances the nuclear and ballistic missile programs. So these are options. The question is, will China agree?
So the key here is China, but it looks like the leader of North Korea it doesn't seem to care about anything. Does China have the leverage?
Well, I mean, China is their main ally, their biggest trade partner. They prop up their economy. They give them oil. So it's an important alliance. So if Kim wants to be cautious and careful, he will cede to whatever China asks him to do. But so far, he's been very resistant. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But I think, as we heard in the package, the discussions are going to move to the G20 on Friday, because that's where you're going to have the presidents of the United States and China, and the Russian leader as well. Russia is key on this with China. So we'll have to see what happens, what comes out of Hamburg.
Yeah, but up to this point, China seems to kind of hold the position that whatever it does, whatever business is doing, is just for humanitarian reasons, right?
Right, and China is extremely concerned that if the regime in North Korea collapses, that there'll be a surge of millions of refugees into their country. And that's the main thing China's trying to avoid, is a collapse of the regime and a huge refugee problem. And certainly the world doesn't need another refugee problem right now. And the United States has made clear that they're not looking for a regime change. They simply want a stop to the nuclear and ballistic missile programs in North Korea. And China has proposed talks. They really want there to be talks, and they've proposed a freeze for freeze. In other words, North Korea would freeze their missile tests and their nuclear tests, and the United States and South Korea would freeze their annual joint military exercises, which are going on right now in the region. So the United States hasn't been keen on that proposal so far, but we'll see if this changes the calculus.
Well, we will be watching, and we'll check with you perhaps later this week. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
That's VOA's UN correspondent Margaret Besheer.